Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Pete Mohr. Pete helps business owners transform from operators to owners using a variety of frameworks that cut through the chaos and overwhelm of running a business. As a certified exit planner and Colby coach, he has refined his tips, tools, and techniques over the past 30 years, sharing them to help others live the life they deserve as business leaders. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Travis. I'm excited to be here on the podcast with you and, of course, with the listeners here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about how did you get here? Tell us a little bit about these past 30 years. What have you been up to that make you, the guy that's going to help us get rid of all this chaos?
Well, for those that are watching, you obviously did it better than I do because you still have all the hair in your head, and I pulled all mine out years ago.
I'll give you that, but
Yeah,
I,
it's
I I've I think I've tried to pull some of it out. It just keeps growing back.
yeah. Well, it's been a great journey, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Not everybody's made to be a business owner, but I think those that want to be and live the life of a business owner, it's hard. I mean, there's ups and downs, Travis, and we've had our downs, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I started off, I was that kid pushing lawnmowers, shoveling snow, that kind of stuff. Had my little landscaping businesses through school and all that kind of stuff. Went to business school, finished, went to work for somebody for about 6 months. It was actually my dad's best friend who I'm named after. His name was Pete too. And he said to me, I think you're meant to be your own boss. And I said, I think I agree. So I was 23, 1994, bought my first franchise. It was a bathroom renovation company. We did bathtub liners and acrylic or bathtub refinishing. We'd sprayed honey oak kitchens to white. We refinished avocado green appliances to white, all sorts of, we'd spray anything. So, and did that for about 15 years. At the same time, we built an underperforming franchise from about 30 clients to 300 clients in the janitorial space. And so I had two businesses for many of those years. I sold those, became a business broker, went back to school, took my executive MBA, and thought I wanted to go to work in big business for a while. That was in 2008, 2009, which everything was sort of crashing. So became a business broker, helping people buy and sell businesses, which is where I found one of the businesses that we still own. We're retailers, Travis, and we own some shoe stores. So 15 years later, we're still actively owners of shoe stores, but I spend most of my time these days working with other business owners, in this sort of framework around coaching other business owners, helping them get exit ready, helping them build the businesses that support the lives they want to leave as opposed to, always propping up their businesses with their lives. I like to use the other framework and saying your business should prop up the life you want to live, and we got some work to do. So that's, the 2 minute journey of 30 years of where I'm at these days. These days I work about a day or so a week in my shoe stores, the rest of the time working with other business owners.
Fantastic. Well, your experience speaks for itself, and I can imagine people that are working with you, can see that benefit. Tell me, what do you find are some of the biggest issues that business owners are facing today?
Well, as we're talking, I think confidence is a big one. Um, lots going on in the world right now. And we're recording this sort of mid-April. There's a lot of things that are shifting around in the world, and anytime there's major change, it creates confidence gaps. And for a lot of business owners, when they don't have confidence, they don't make the decisions they need to make. They feel uncomfortable about it. So there's a lot of things that are inhibiting what would be a normal trajectory of growth and what would be a normal trajectory of business planning and strategy and things like that. So it's like going back to the drawing board for a lot of businesses. And in a way, that's a good thing because a lot of business owners, as they've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they get sort of used to the way things are done. And sometimes it does take a little bit of a, twist of the arm to get you looking at things in a different way, to become more effective, more efficient, to be leaner, to be meaner, to have your business running on rails so that it's going to, carry you through time, uncertain times, let's call it. And, I think that's real these days.
I love that. It's you're exactly right. I mean, this is what's going on today in the world, and it definitely affects the economy, affects us. Let's talk a little bit about the chaos that might be happening. Yes, we know what's happening outside,
Yeah.
but what's going on inside? Talk to me a little about what you've seen, kind of the chaos that happens with business owners.
Yeah, part of the controllable conversation, right? We can't control that stuff that we were just chatting about very much. All we can do is deal with what's dealt. But the controllables are the inside. And what we see, or what I see most often in the businesses, because most of the businesses that I work with are sort of between the 2 million and $15 million range. So they're not startups, they're not one man shows, they're sort of operating businesses with teams. And what generally happens is there's just too much going on in the owner's head. And they haven't set up process, they haven't aligned and assigned accountabilities, and they're having issues around removing themselves from the business for some decision making. And there's so many different pieces of the puzzle here as we're trying, because one of the things that I always try and reflect upon is that one day you will exit your business. And so every decision along your journey as the business owner should be a decision that's creating value in your business, because at the end of that time as you're a business owner, whether you elect to exit your business somewhere down the road or whether you have to exit your business down the road, you want to be creating value every day so that it's at its maximum amount of value. And so every decision that we make as business owners is not only about what we're taking home this week, it's about constantly creating value in the business throughout the life expectancy of the business as we hold it.
Talk to me a little about to what business owners can do to plan, prepare um, for that exit someday. Talk to us a little bit about what you do and some of your framework there that might help them. So even if they're not thinking right now, because I know some of the stats, most business owners don't even start thinking about this until they're about 5 years away. And even those who are 5 years away, it's a very small percentage that even have someone in mind who they're passing the business on to. And so a lot of times it's quite fascinating. A lot of times they have to go to a business broker, which is where you began. Like, okay, now we got to go to a business broker and we're going to sell the business probably for a lot less than they could have, given the business to the next generation. So why don't we go there? Talk to us a little about what your framework is.
Yeah, I mean, I have a multitude of different frameworks for different pieces of business, but when we look at it from that scope, Travis, I think it's really interesting because a lot of the work that I do is family transition, So if you do have, kids that are interested in the business, that's a different sort of scope than if we're going to list the business and sell it, which I've also done as a former business broker, helping people buy and sell businesses. And as an exit planner, my job is to really help people understand their options. And so we kind of go into this, and I'm always going into it with the buyer's viewpoint. So I want to look at your business as an outside buyer, and what am I going to pick apart if I was looking at dissecting this business? Because most small business owners haven't been through due diligence. And if you go through due diligence, it's not fun. They will rip apart everything of your business unless it's very clear, very, it's laid out, and they have full confidence in what you're telling them is what's going to happen. So my job is really to help set that up. And one of the best things I do, whether we're setting up for exit planning or whether we're setting up just for running good business and good strategy, I wrote a little book on it called The Business Owner Breakthrough. And it's all around the 6P structure. And the 6P structure, I'll give it to you very quickly, and we can dig into where you think might be appropriate. But the first P is the bedrock. It's like building a house. It's your promise. And the promise isn't your mission and your vision, those are internal. The promise is what you're shouting out to the world. This is what I do, this is how I uniquely do it, and this is how I can help you have a better life. Because one thing is that people only buy services and goods when they see a better life. They'll only put their checkbook down, their credit card down, their cash down on the table if they see the path to a better life. So we need to understand their pain, understand how we uniquely solve it, and understand how we can let them know that we are their choice to have a better life. Once we do that and we have that really solid, then we're going to align the next four P's, and they are your product, or if you're a service oriented business, service, your process, your people, and your promotion so that you can get to the final one, which is the most important, the profit, right? And once we get to the profit, now we can go back and when we're doing our quarterly planning, our yearly planning, all that sort of stuff, we're saying, okay, well, there's this amount of profit. Are we going to buy someone else's time to help me make decisions in my business? Are we going to add on to the business? We can only start thinking about those sort of things in a bigger focus once the profit is there, because up until that time, it's all hands on deck and we're just like pushing through to get through that startup phase in order to get to profit. But starting to think in this framework, the promise, the product, the process, the people, the promotion allows you to get everything you need to get to profit, and we can dive down into any of those specifically because there's whole frameworks around each of those as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it just there's so many business owners I've encountered in my research for my books that they work in the business a lot. They're
Mm,
spending the majority of their time there,
for sure.
but they're not really business owners, and it's hard to tell them like you own the business, but it really owns you. Like you're kind of a slave to it. You're not really the business owner yet. And I get it. We start businesses, we jump into this thing to get there. Some of us buy the business
Yeah.
and, we can come in legitimately as a business owner. It has a CEO, it's running, there are systems in place. That's why you buy a business. That's why you buy a
Yeah.
franchise is you have those pieces already done. Doesn't mean there's not work to be done, of course. But the majority of business owners I see think that they're there, but they're not. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that dilemma. I know you've got some thoughts around that.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I've got lots of stories around it. My most recent one is, from my own example. In order to be exit ready with our shoe stores, one of my tests was for me to go away for a month this year. Like I went away and I've been away for extended period of times before, but this one with limited amount of conversation back and forth. But this one was really okay. I'm going to go away for a month with no conversation, no text, no email. Don't call me. And I came back after that month away, and I said, "So what do I need to do?" And they said, "Nothing. Everything's good." And so this is where you get to the point where now I'm looking at the business. When you said, am I an operator or am I an owner? I still operate my business. I was selling shoes last Saturday, but I'm still in and out and all of that sort of stuff, but I don't have to be there all the time. I'm working in the area which I call my love it zone instead of my leave it zone, which is the area I don't want to work in my business. And there are other people in my business that do love that area, that do way better than I ever did. And that's part of the alignment of the people and the process, so that I can look at this business now when I sit down and look at it and say, I've got an X amount of dollar investment in this business. Does this make sense for me to keep this business, or is this money better spent somewhere else? And that's when you're starting to look at your business like a business owner. It's like any other investment. If I've got $1 million, am I going to place the $1 million in a stock, a bond, another house, a business? Now I'm looking at this all across the board and I'm saying, well, this $1 million in this business is either worth it or not. And if it's not worth it in the time and energy that I'm spending, then I should really exit that business and pop it into another investment that's going to help me and my family. That's just good business sense. And on the other side of the things, if I look at this investment, I said, "Oh, I've got $1 million in this business, and it's kind of running itself, and it's spitting off returns that are way higher than I'm getting anywhere else. Why wouldn't I keep it?"
Right.
It's a good investment. So
Yep.
that's when you're starting to look at these things from an investment perspective and saying, for the amount of time that I'm working over here and do what I'm doing here, is this a good investment? And if that adds up for you, because everybody's different, if that adds up for you, then it's good and you should stay in your business. And if it doesn't add up for you, then you start looking at exiting your business and making those choices. But if you're working every day in your business and you're 70 hours a week, every week, and all of this other stuff, and all the decisions are being run through you, everything's happening through you, it's hard to sell that kind of business. Nobody wants to buy that because they're saying, well, I'm already working a corporate job. Why would I just do that again and
Yep.
have to pay for me to do that by buying this business and have all of the other things in behind it? I got to own all this stock. I got to pay all these suppliers. I've got 15 employees or 50 employees, whatever it is. And I have all of that hanging over my head too. Is it worth it? Because that's what the question, when at the end of the day, when you do exit your business, because everybody will exit your business, that's the question that the buyer's going to ask. Is it worth it?
Yeah, great point. They're evaluating that next step. Because if it's not worth it, why even go down that route?
I'm going to take my $1 million and I'm going to go over here.
Yep.
Right? And but most business owners are kind of like, well, of course my business is worth it. It's a hallmark of our town, or it's been here for 30 years and all. But the other business owner or the other person looking at this business owner is probably going to discount a lot of that stuff, and they're just going to look at it from a financial perspective and say, oh, it's $1 million business, it's spitting me off $200,000 a year, I should be able to pay it off in 5 years, okay. Or it's not. And, so they're going to look at it in the frameworks of the other investments. And then that's the first step. And then they're going to dig down into whether it fits their life and all this other stuff. Because if it doesn't fit the money equation, it's often a transfer that's going to fail.
Yeah. So let's talk about those potentials for failure. This is exactly where I want to go next is, well, you mentioned there are some things that might prohibit a business to transfer. Let's talk about those. What are they? Maybe explain them briefly, and we might dig into a couple of those.
Yeah. There's a lot. One of the biggest ones, Travis, is the owner themselves. And so we call it the three legs of the stool. So, and the three legs of the stool for a business owner is one, are you financially ready? Like, do you have your finances in order and can you actually be done with this business? Two, is your business exit ready? Which is kind of where I step in from a business coach standpoint and help you make sure that it is. Three, are you exit ready? Which is your mindset. Like, are you okay with actually leaving this business now? And do you have something to go to? And do you have a life after planned? Because if you don't, if you're a younger person like me, I've exited lots of businesses and got into other ones. The plan was get into another one and go. But if you're sort of at the end stage where you're like, I don't think I really want to get into another business, well, what are you going to do? Because I can tell you a few things. You can only travel so much. You can only play so much golf. We talked a little bit as we were hopping on here about skiing. You can only go skiing so much. I mean, after a year of doing all those bucket list things, then what? And if you're, 54 like me and wanting to exit your business and you got another 40 or 50 years ahead of you, it's like you got to fill some time there. And this is one of the things that a lot of businesses fail through this due diligence process and through sort of end negotiations because the actual owner, it gets real for the owner. It's like, well, what am I going to do? And they actually sabotage the deal from happening, not always sort of explicitly, sometimes just in the background. And they don't even realize they're doing it, but they actually do it because they're scared of life after.
Yeah, some of that really is here. It's right in their head. I
Totally.
mean, some of that is they're just not ready. I help a lot on the financial side with marriages, especially family on that. So that's cool that we've got a lot of overlap here. But that readiness. Some
Yeah.
people think they're ready to retire to sell a business, but they're really not. They're really holding on. They just like when business owners tell me, "Oh yeah, I'm really good at delegating," and they realize that they're actually not very really good at all. They're holding on to so much control, and it's a part of their identity too. I mean, if you're a
Totally.
business owner for 30 years and then poof, you're not, oh, whoa, it kind of shakes you up a little bit. There's an identity crisis. You mentioned a little bit about people, and let's talk a little bit about potentially the marriage partner. And this is kind of where some of our areas overlap as well, and expertise.
Yeah.
Talk to us about this potential. I mean, what happens? You've got this plan, you're going to exit, and then we've got some marital problems.
Yeah. You know, I use sort of a 5D structure on why you're getting out of your, why you might have to get out of your business, as opposed to half the people, exit plan and they've got this plan. I want to retire and that happens. Great. Or I want to move out of this business and move on to something else and that happens. Great. The other half, well, here are things, and for those that are listening, might have has happened to somebody that you know. Premature death, divorce, distress, disability, partnership disagreements, all of these things can cause premature exit of a business. And when we get back to sort of that idea of divorce, you can divorce your um, partner at home, but you can also divorce your partner at work if you have a corporate partner. And it's really, I mean, outside of the fact that you're married to one of them or whatever the case is, or living with one of them and they're um, working through all of that sort of stuff is really the same sort of thing because it's a split. And that split has to happen in a way that's going to allow the business to carry on. And often it carries on with only one of those two partners. Or if you have business partners, you could have 20 business partners and you're leaving or they're leaving or whatever the case is. But the idea is that we really want to go into this stuff. And I'm a business partner. All of my businesses, I have a business partner, and she happens to be my wife. And so we've got it set up so that if I die, she knows what to do. If she dies, I know what to do. We've got insurance coverages. We've got all sorts of different things that protect us and protect our family and protect our investments. And if we get divorced, there's some sort of stuff in there too as to how things are getting split and thought about. And I encourage anybody listening here that, nobody gets married, for example, with the anticipation that they're going to get divorced. Nobody goes into business with a partner with the anticipation that that partnership is going to work out. But one and two don't make it. And I think it's really one of those things that you need to do some thought around. We need to talk about as a couple or as a business partner. And we need to sort of understand, like on the business partnership side of things, do you have the buy sell agreement in place? Do you have what you need to do for one of you to get out when and if is necessary? What happens if your partner gets divorced? Right? Like what happens if you're in partnership in a business with someone else and your partner gets divorced, not you? How does that affect? Because you're counting on your partner to do all that stuff. But if your partner has to exit the business because he's got commitments to his wife or she's got commitments to her husband and she can't stay in the business because the finances don't allow that to happen. These are real things that we see, Travis, right? Like, and a lot of people don't do any planning towards that stuff. We plan for all sorts of stuff. We plan to renovate our house when we have a plan there that says if I'm putting 1,000 square feet on the back of my house, it's going to built with a solid foundation. It's going to have 2x6s. It's going to have a steel roof. It's going to have good windows that are insulated. All this kind of stuff, and that's just for a little renovation. $100,000 on the back of our house. We're talking in some places, 10, $20 million businesses here that don't even have that level of planning. And it's sad that people haven't actually gone through some thoughts around that with their financial planners, with their lawyers, with their accountants, in tax planning and some of that sort of stuff, with their business coach, so that we can actually get some of this stuff set up so that if the worst happens, at least you have a framework to use that you can follow, or if the inevitable or if the unfortunate thing happens and you can't follow them, the people that love and want to help you through whatever it is that you're going through can follow them.
Yeah, so you bring up something that's super, super important, and that is these D's that you talk about them, what, five or six of them, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about this with my clients as well. Divorce is a big one, but the divorce, it could be the partnership divorce, meaning if you
Yeah.
have partners, like, and they're like, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore, we're gone. What? Like that can come out of the blue. I've had clients where this just doesn't make sense, and they break contracts, and now they're in court. And anyway,
I know.
the story goes on. But it also, you bring up a really great point. It could be the divorce of the business partner.
Yeah.
Do you plan for that? If so, how? What do you do? And on the financial side, there are some things you can put in place, but that's typically a triggering event that will bring in some insurance or something that might be helpful, so you can buy the partner out, or now the divorced partner can buy he can buy the divorced partner out. Like there's all these things that come into play. But what about the prevention, right? What do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. um, when you brought up that statistic of 1 and 2, a little correction, only because I've studied this and in my PhD, and I'm going to geek out. But this is not your problem. It's not this kind of society's problem. But we kind of tend to think that 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's true, but it's 50% of all marriages: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And interestingly enough, is the second, third, fourth, and fifth, and et cetera,
Much more
they have a
common.
higher likelihood of getting divorced
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So I think we also kind of need to be careful. I'm not saying like it's your fault. It's society. We just kind of
Yep.
think that, oh yeah, half of all marriages end in divorce. Yeah, all marriages, but not half of all first marriages. It's actually really low.
Travis, have,
It's
have you done
Yeah.
any work around this? I'm very interested
Yes.
to
Yeah.
overlay the entrepreneurs into this. Like, from an entrepreneurial perspective, what's the rate? Do you know?
Yeah, so that gets a little tricky because it's
Hmm.
super hard to know.
I
Like
know.
a lot of these divorce rates, I'm sorry, we're going to get on this a little bit, but
It's
a
okay.
lot of divorce rates come from the state governments in the United
Yes.
States. They look at, okay, who had a marriage certificate and who had a divorce. So
Hmm.
it doesn't even mean that the person was married in that state. It
Yeah.
just means they filed for divorce in that state. So the numbers are really bad. The account, like, how do you follow this? Well, unless you actually do your own study. What we do know is that there are some predictors of divorce. Money tends to be a high, or money problems tend to be a high predictor. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily the cause.
Yep.
The cause is really selfishness, greed, and other issues
Yeah.
that bring people apart. But what can bring people together is kind of what I want to get at, is like, well, how do we prevent some of this?
Yeah.
How do we focus on that? And that's really the research that I've done for my book, Marry and Grow Rich. We've interviewed close to 1,500 business owners. So
Wow.
as far as I know, I'm one of the only ones that have done this research, and we found there's only about 3%, 3% out of all those business owners that are really on the right track. On the
Wow.
right track. So are business owners and entrepreneurs at a higher likelihood of getting off the rails and becoming, getting divorced? Probably. They're higher stressed. They have higher marital stress because of money that's up and down, etc. And that's honestly why I serve them, Pete. So it's kind of I appreciate you bringing up this question. But I think looking at not only your own partner, who you're in business with, your partner. I call you guys couplepreneurs. You're in
Yeah.
business together. You're a couplepreneur. But then some people have business partners,
Yeah.
and they may be married, they may not be. Likelihood
Hmm.
of them being married is pretty high, and so there's that issue. There is. I believe that this area is very underserved. It's a lot of, let's look at the numbers, let's do marketing, let's focus on systems, let's grow the business. But this human factor of marriages and partnerships very underserved. I'd like to know what you think people should be doing out there, especially business owners, to prevent that from happening. I'd love to know what your thoughts are as you've worked with them.
I had a great conversation with a family yesterday. And like I said, we talked briefly about them, but because it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, and it's not only couples, it's not only, the married couple, it's the family. And, if you have kids that are adults, let's say. My kids are 27, 25, 24. They're adults now and have been for years. And to have adult conversations around, and this is, part of that leadership structure, communication, management structure, and accountability. It's the same sort of thing as a parent, as a leader of your business, is that communication needs to happen. And unfortunately, communication, in my opinion, is one of the major breakdowns of any marriage, of any partnership, of any business structure. And that's why it's sort of at the very top of the framework that I gave to you earlier, because it's such an undervalued piece. So when we take it into our um, marriage structure, it's like the communication, even of having a structure of what happens if things happen. Like, my wife's not an active partner in all of my business. She's basically a shareholder, but she's not really that active in what we do. She's, maybe a half day a week or something like that. But I'm still the majority decision maker. Yet, if she ever needs to do that, she knows where to go. She knows who to talk to. She knows what to do, because we've set that all out. And I think in so many small businesses and in so many small business, how did you call them? Couple partners?
Couplepreneurs. Yeah.
Couplepreneurs. Uh, in so many couplepreneurs, and that couple could be either for the husband and wife, or it could be for a mom and a daughter, or a mom and a son, or a dad and a daughter, that, family business. A lot of times things go from the parent structure um, unsaid, and they're expected and they're assumed. And that's a problem. It's a real problem that, and excuse my language, but the word assume, when you break it down, is make an ass of you and me. Well, this happens all the time because there's an assumption that because we talk and you live in the same house and we have supper together, that you know everything, and you know what's in my mind. Well, it's not. And so when we take it out of the marriage and into the business, there are things that still need to be communicated. We still need to have the right process. We still need to have the right people. We still need to have the right accountability structures. We still need to have really clear understanding of who's in charge at any given time. All of those things are lacking in a lot of small businesses, whether they're owned by couplepreneurs or whether they're just singly owned. It business and life sort of blends together for a lot of small business owners, and we find this, at least I do, with a lot of the people that I coach, whether it's kids in the business or couples.
Yeah. Great. I mean, we can talk about this for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that you're bringing this up. I'm a big believer in what's a strengths based approach. Like what's actually working, and communication is big in these areas, in a marriage, in a business
yeah,
partnership, and preventing some of these problems they're realistic. Let's just be honest.
yeah.
They are very realistic, and we're at a higher likelihood of these things going down as a business owner as opposed to not. So curious, what's maybe one or two things, you kind of mentioned communication, but maybe one other thing that might be helpful for business owners to put them
Yeah.
in a place of strength, to prepare for something that could go wrong. And yeah, what would you suggest business owners maybe start doing?
Well, one of the other hats that I have is I'm a Colby coach. So, talking about strengths, Colby is all around your innate strengths. And, it's really about how you make decisions. So it's not about your preferences, like Enneagram and Strength Finders and DISC and a lot of those other assessments that are out there are really around your preferences. Colby is the only one that's around the conative. And the conative really has to do with how you make decisions. It doesn't change through life experience. It's like who you are is who you are. It's been tested for 50 years. So I love working with business owners, and anybody I start working with, I always put them through a Colby so that I have a better lens as to how they deal with facts, how they deal with follow through, how they deal with sort of change management, and how hands-on are they, all these different things that we're getting into from that side of things. It's really important to understand, and Kathy Colby, who founded this, does has done over her career lots of couples work and lots of things like that too. I put it in as a business lens when we overlay the accountability charts and the executive teams and all that sort of stuff because I want to know how my team makes decisions. And we also use it as part of our hiring process to hire the right people. So, you wouldn't want a bookkeeper in your business that doesn't like to check the boxes. So knowing that going in, as opposed to just having an interview and the person says, "Oh yeah, I love checking boxes," and then you find out, 2 months later that they really don't check any boxes. Like these are the kind of things that we can do to set up wins before they already happen with the people component. I mean, the people component of our business is such a big part of the business, and you know what it is to hire a wrong person and have a wrong person, and the costs, not only for the physical costs of those, but the actual mental costs, the strain on the rest of the team, the hurt of the culture towards your clients, all these other things. We want to really be aligning as much of that as we can in setting up the business structure the best that we can going into it, as opposed to having to deal with it on the back end.
Love that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in testing, and we spend a lot of time here on there's so many tests, personality tests,
Yeah.
etc. With my master's in psychology, I've taken a plethora of them and
Hmm.
given some of them to class, students back in the day. But I do enjoy the Colby. There's a lot of reasons why. If you haven't taken your Colby, it's very, very well worth it. I am a 2585. So you and I are 8 and 9 on the quick start. We're very
Yeah.
much visionary and
Yes.
leaders. And let's, ready, fire, aim, which quite honestly, most entrepreneurs that I work with, they're in the same boat. Most entrepreneurs, they just big picture visionary people, and it benefits us to have others help along the way to help make sure things get taken care of.
We need to
So
wrap ourselves around with the right team,
yeah,
right? It's
that's
such a
it.
vital part of growing that valuable business and having the life that we want as business owners.
Yeah, well done. If people want to connect with you, Pete, I know you've got a book out.
I do.
Tell us where they can get your book and what how they can connect with you.
The best way really is just to go to Pete-Mohr, that's Mohr, Pete-Mohr.com, and you can get everything at that site. You'll connect to the Exit Ready business, you'll connect to the Colby Coach, you'll connect to my book, and my podcasts are there too. So really everything sort of evolves out of Pete-Mohr.com. And of course, I'm on socials, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the same name.
Nice. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you. Anything at the end of this to wrap it up that you'd like to mention or suggest or that we left out?
I really think it's important that I'll go back to what we've talked a lot about here is that one day you will exit your business, and building the value in your business every day, the decisions that you make, the planning that you do in order for whether you're going to exit the business with because you want to or whether you exit the business because you have to, it's an important piece of your planning and structure, and you can't leave it until the end. It takes time. It often takes years in order to set this up properly. So when should you start? You should start today. And I mean, it's a call to action here, Travis. For if you haven't started, I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to the listener.
Yeah.
If you haven't started, then at least start getting some stuff down on pens and paper and start writing a plan that this year you're going to start getting some stuff going on this because it's important to you, it's important to your family, it's important to your legacy.
Remind us the name of your book.
It's called the Business Owner Breakthrough.
Love it. Get his book, connect with Pete. He's got all the information there. And, if this has been helpful, like and share and do all the things. If you haven't grabbed my book, Marry and Grow Rich, go to marryandgrowrichbook.com. Pete and I have been talking a lot about concepts of man, and we could just go
Yeah,
into depth in these resources. So please take advantage of them. And again, thank you for being on the show today here, Pete.
been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Travis. Make it a great day.